Silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a few new guests, so just to explain, we have these meetings audio recorded, and we will also be taking video and putting them up on our YouTube channel, hopefully in the next couple weeks. Since our last meeting, I can think of a few meetings where the commissioners have been together. We're supposed to announce executive sessions. I believe we only had one official executive session since the last meeting. But in an effort of transparency, we're letting you know anytime that a majority of the board were together. On the 16th was the official one where we talked about a real estate issue. Ultimately, the result of that ended up in me going to the city council meeting on this past Monday. So all of that was on public record. We also then later in the day talked about a tax assessment issue. And all three commissioners were present for both of those. On the 17th, the Attorney General came, and the press actually was there for most of it. No county business was discussed. Commissioner Eggleston and I were both there. On the 22nd, we met with Free Books for Kidstown, or all three were invited. I believe just Commissioner Eggleston and I were there. On the 23rd, we met with Beacon Light, all three of us, regarding primarily a personnel issue, ergo it's exempt. And this morning, we met with Enterprise, all three invited. Commissioner Eggleston and I were there, and Fiscal Director, and we were discussing the size of the fleet and how we might be able to cut it back. That is, I believe, the list of executive sessions since our last meeting. Do the other commissioners have anything to raise? Okay. We have no public hearing today. At this time, we used to have our public comment at the end of the meeting, but I'd like to move that up in order to facilitate anybody that wants to present anything to the board before we set our agenda and approve the minutes and that sort of thing. That said, the library theater request is something that is on the agenda, so you may speak about that during the public comment period if you choose, but I would prefer that it go under the Library Theater Act 13 request in old business. We will allow ample time, up to 5 minutes per speaker at that time. So with that, do we have any public comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Brad, did you want to introduce yourself, by the way?
Sure. My name is Brad Moore. I just recently joined Congressman Thompson's staff from Congressman Kelly's office previously. So a good way to get to know the county business is to go to the commissioners' meeting. So I'm happy to sit and observe today. But, nice seeing everyone. Thanks.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. And by the way, it's a special treat today, actually yesterday I think it was, that Congressman Thompson called me and said, hey, my schedule is off, so I've got free reign of my calendar. What are you doing Wednesday afternoon? And so he's going to come up and we're going to check out the future Northern Pennsylvania Regional College headquarters, as well as take a look at the Longhouse Scenic Drive where we've applied for a Tiger grant to replace that road. So looking forward to a good discussion, and thank you very much for coming down, and we really look forward to hosting Congressman Thompson this afternoon. Public comment? Sorry, did I see another hand?
Yes, John Carr. I had a question on working with WCCBI.
Okay.
How come you all don't work with WCCBI, and how come their meetings are closed, and why do you go to them if they're closed? Is that not against the law to have that way?
I'm sure we all have comments on that, so let's start with Commissioner Eggleston.
First of all, the meetings that they have are totally within the realm of the law. Many nonprofits do not have public per se meetings. They have meetings where they have executive discussion and a number of other things. So, and this has been gone over a number of different ways by a number of different lawyers. So they're acting completely within the realm of the law, first of all. Second of all, we're directly involved with the WCCBI. Commissioner Caffrell and I have attended most of the meetings that have taken place over the past 2 years since we've been in office. We work with them on securing the Rural Regional College. We were heavily involved in pitching Warren County as a location for the headquarters and successfully landed it. We've also worked with them on projects related to the trails at Jake's Rocks and a number of other business-related issues. So we're very involved, I think, with the WCCBI.
What does WCCBI stand for?
Warren County Chamber of Business and Industry.
And aren't they there for the community,
Yes.
to better the community?
Yes.
And why aren't they open to public?
They have
They
public
their
meetings. Their regular business meetings are not public or publicly advertised.
Should be, should they not?
That's your opinion. I understand that. There's
And
a
apparently, my opinion doesn't count, or the opinion of many people in this county.
well, as a for instance, the Humane Society, which I don't know that we've had any like major discussion about. Their meetings are private. They're a nonprofit. We have meetings at the Rouse. They're a nonprofit. Those meetings are not publicly advertised.
Do you
Like-
go to the, as county commissioners, do you go to the Humane Society meetings? Are you on the committee?
I am not, but I can.
Okay, but you are.
And I'm
not.
planning on
None
it.
of you are, right? But
Yeah.
you are and should be on the WCCBNI committee, are you not?
Yes.
We all are, yes.
But is it now there's only two of you?
Well, there's two that attend.
And the third one doesn't attend, for what reason? Is it the sunshine laws?
I'd like to speak on that,
Go right
yes.
ahead.
Okay.
For many years now, the WCCBI has held closed-door meetings, and that's been one of the main reasons why I will not attend. Until they open up their meetings to the public, I intend not to attend. We give them a great deal of money. We give them $40,000 every year, and I feel when we give them that amount of money, they need to open up their meetings so that everybody knows where their dollars are being spent. I do believe there is a gray area in where the Sunshine Law could be violated if we attend, because all three of us are in the room and voting on decisions that are made at that meeting. That, to me, is an ethics violation, and that's a Sunshine Law, potential Sunshine Law violation, so that's why I don't go. I believe that the meeting should be open. Any amount of time or any amount of money that we spend of your money, you should have every right to attend and see where it's going. Also, because I'm no longer attending the meetings, I had a sit down with Mr. Decker, who's the CEO of the chamber, and he instructed me that since I'm no longer attending, they've removed me from the board, and I no longer receive their emails. As a county commissioner, I would think that it just warrants me having those, regardless of whether or not I attend their meetings.
I do agree with that also, and also, you two gentlemen both attend those meetings, right?
Yes.
Do you bring back input for that? Do you put it in the papers for what happened? Or do
Absolutely.
you discuss it as a group, you two, or you three?
No, we don't, and you had your chance to speak, so I'd like to address it. We don't consider meetings where the commissioners are together acting on business of another entity to be eligible for the sunshine. We are on that board as commissioners, but we're not acting as commissioners in that sense. We're not conducting county business. We are on the board of a 501c3 and as well as a 501c12, since the WCCBI and the WCDA are all governed by one board under two separate IRS classifications. It's just the same way with the Rouse board meetings. We don't publicize those. They're not public meetings, and they're a 501c3. If any of us are on other boards, I think I sit on about 19 boards, and just by me being on it should not make the 501c3 therefore a government entity and therefore subject to the Sunshine Law. So we've had our previous solicitors and current solicitor look into this, going back many years, since I believe 2004 was the first time that this issue was raised, and all are in accord that it is not a violation of the Sunshine Law for us to go to those meetings, again, because they are not government entities. If we use the logic that they get government funds and therefore should have public meetings, that would mean that any grant, for instance, to any organization, Humane Society, Library, Theater, any organization, then we would have to, they would have to have public meetings, which is not really tenable. That said, because this has been such an issue, the WCCBI has had meetings where they have presented before the COG, before us, in independent meetings, and really almost no one shows or pays interest. And lastly, when it goes to setting aside the legal issues and all of that, The main reason that we do not want to have those meetings public are because we discuss issues that should not end up in the press, such as a real estate development. If a government entity were to get involved with the WCCBI for the purpose of buying property or something, then that would need to be made public, and they are. But because they're negotiating and talking about what they're willing to pay for properties in order to do redevelopment and economic development, we don't want that information getting out to the press, because then obviously the owner of the property would know what we're talking about and what we're thinking, and we would not have the benefit of knowing what they're thinking. So, for those reasons, I think it's not unethical, and it's also imprudent to have public meetings. But I do very much appreciate you bringing the issue to our attention, and I'm happy to have a conversation about it further. That said, we have...
I would like a quick rebuttal.
How about just a minute?
We give money. We do not give any public funding to the Rouse Home. That's why those meetings are closed.
But is it government money?
No public money goes. No, the county does not fund the Rouse Home.
Sunshine Law has to do with government money, public money.
And also, if the chamber wanted to hold meetings, they could always go into executive session to discuss anything that's sensitive by nature. And also, I had Michelle Alasky, who is our last solicitor for the county, look into this, and she said it's definitely a gray area in regard to the Sunshine Law.
And I tend to agree with that, simply because we do give money to them, and that's our money, the taxpayers of this county. And that's why I kind of feel that you two that go to it should discuss it also with the third member of the county commissioners. And I know Mr. Decker, and I don't think he has the right not to send an email of the meetings, minutes of the meeting, to Cindy, since she is commissioner.
He would actually be violating the bylaws of the organization if he did that, because she failed to come to more than 3 meetings. The bylaws say that once you have done that, you will be kicked off the board.
And just to be clear, Commissioner Morrison has never attended a single meeting. So to say that she's a member of the group, I think, is a little bit disingenuous. And the place to raise this would be at the meeting, to lobby for it within the meeting. That's never happened. So those are 2 counterpoints that I would make.
Within what meeting?
The WCCBI meeting.
And how could I do that when it's closed?
No, he's
No,
not
they
meeting
can't.
you. You're not welcome.
I'm saying
I would be
Commissioner
that
Morrison
person.
has never attended a single WCCBI meeting to make
Correct.
any of these concerns to the board itself,
not true.
or make a motion at the board to be seconded by anyone. And therefore, I don't know how you could count her as a member of the organization if she's literally never attended a meeting of the body.
I did have a meeting with Mr. Decker.
I do have a potential solution here. So, we give money in terms of grants and contracts and such to many organizations. Many of them do not have public meetings. Probably most of them don't have public meetings. And if there's a performance-based contract in place, then of course, why would you? They're providing us a service that's, in my opinion, valued much, much, much higher than $40,000 when it comes to what they do in terms of going and being our representative for the Workforce Development Board, the Northwest Commission. They represent us in Harrisburg many times. If you calculated their hourly rate out and multiplied it by the hours that they put in on behalf of the county, I think it would come out to be well over $40,000. Therefore, would the board be interested perhaps in considering some sort of a contract with them and avoid this whole subsidiary argument and simply contract the work to them?
I would like to know what state contracts and grants that you're referring to that would go to any entity that wouldn't be holding public meetings.
I mean,
Just name one.
we've met the
Fundamentally-
Humane Society, for instance.
Fundamentally, the Rouse organization gets the bulk of its funding from the federal government. That's all public money. That's
Right.
all public money. So to say that they don't have taxpayer dollars, I think, is not true. And the Humane Society gets the bulk of their funding from public dollars. It might not be county dollars, but it's public money. Now, I had a point that I was going to make, but I forgot it, so I'll leave it alone.
Well, at this time, we've spent nearly 10 minutes on this, and usually like to keep it to about 5. So does anyone else have a... yes, thank you very much for your comment, and we appreciate your concern. If you have any more questions, I'm sure any one of us would be individually happy to answer them.
I just have one very quick point, which is to thank you for bringing up the question, and then also to say that the discussion about public meetings has not gone unheard or unlistened to. The WCCBI recently conducted a public meeting specifically because of the concerns that have been raised by Commissioner Morris and others like yourself. And so the organization is aware of those concerns and is trying to change direction in the sense that give more opportunities for the public to give input into the conduct of the organization itself. So thank you for bringing it to everyone's attention.
One of the reasons that I brought this up in the beginning was that in a few years past, it's been quite some time, there was monies that were taken from one project to another, and no one knew about that until after the fact, because we could not go to the meetings. In other words, what it was is for years, people were donating money for one cause. Years later, WCCBI takes it upon themselves to take money from there and put it into this project that they were working on, because that project hadn't come to fruition, and they thought, well, hey, we'll just take it from there. That was never put in the paper, that was never put out publicly. And when I asked the question, I was the only one at the public meeting that they had when they were utilizing those funds for that particular event that asked the question, what gave you the right to take that money from that account and put it over here? And they said, well, it hadn't been used yet. But it's already put in there for a particular thing, and it should have been left there, and it wasn't. That was other people's money that they took out of there. If that meeting had not been closed, I would have known that. I would have been able to vote against it. Couldn't do that. The meeting's closed.
Well, I'm not familiar with that particular instance, so I'm happy to have a conversation with you after about it. At this time, we're going to have to cut the debate short. Are there any other public comments that do not have to do with either library, anything on the agenda, or WCCBI? Okay, very well. Then moving on, has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? And does it meet with your approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you had a chance to read the minutes, and do you have any corrections?
I do not.
Then I'll ask the acting fiscal director for the the fiscal report.
Fiscal report, as of January the 23rd, we have general fund balance of $2,689,855. And compared to the same period the year before, we had $2,339,000, or an increase of roughly a little more than $350,000 from year to year. Our cash flow projection of just the general fund, and by the way, that includes the general fund that we have located at Key Bank, and then we have an Erie Bank general fund as well. The general fund, where most of the distribution is made, the Key Bank, we have a projection after expenditures that are outstanding. We have a $1,885,112 versus the prior year of $1,594,756, or a little more than $290,000. So we're a little ahead of where we were a year ago. And as you know, we've not yet, that obviously allows us not to need to take money from the tax anticipation loan. Typically, in the past, we've had an accounts payable for you folks to review, and due to a staffing issue, we do not have that available for you today. So we'll
Understood.
the next meeting.
So last week, I actually the last meeting, I had to work on the fiscal report by myself and pulled some of these numbers. And one thing that kind of concerned me about its calculation is, and I wanted you to confirm this, is that more or less this is a cash balance based on cash on hand.
Correct.
Not with a reconciled account.
Bank
correct?
reconciliations typically occur on a monthly basis.
And when was the last time that we actually were caught up on
the Key Bank
reconciliation?
General Fund, which is the bulk, it was last reconciled in August, and the Erie Bank General Fund was last reconciled at the end of November.
Okay.
This is typically something that's done on a month-out basis by the end of the following month.
Okay, so we're months behind.
We are at least.
So
yes.
how confident are you that that's the money that we actually have in the...
I can't answer that.
Understood. Okay.
Well, I can tell you that if I go to your bank account, we'll be within a small percentage.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any questions for the fiscal director? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes from January 10th, and the fiscal report.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, sorry.
Comment. In regards to, you kind of left that open as if there's a question of how much money there is.
Mhm.
And actually, those are the balances in the accounts at this point. So I don't want anybody to think that there's an issue with how much money is there. I'm confident with the numbers that are on that report because I basically supplied the information based
Right.
on the information I work with on a daily basis. I understand that the accounts are not reconciled yet, but I'm also in tune with what's in the accounts, and those are good numbers.
Right. Yes, I don't think I'm actually concerned about running out of money tomorrow or something. I'm just concerned that we don't have an accurate number, that when it comes to the payables.
Payables, I understand.
Right.
Thank you very much for that, Treasurer.
Did you make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to adopt all of that stuff.
I'll second it.
Any further comments from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Old business, Resolution 3096 for the Library Theater Act 13 fund request. This is something that's been on the agenda for the last few meetings, but we keep tabling it pending a letter from the solicitor regarding eligibility of use of these funds for that project, as well as we've been in the process of sorting out exactly the process for how we're going to be doling out Act 13 dollars within the various three buckets. We've talked at length about these things in several work sessions now, and I don't want to belabor it too much further, except to say that if you are curious about how it's been shaking out, we had a meeting at our last work session where we discussed a application process that we're going to be implementing. We came up with some general procedures. We've given that to Planning and Zoning Director, who has gone ahead and drafted up the policy, and the Planning and Zoning Office would be administering it. We'll be talking about that in more detail at our next work session, because we just got the report today, which I thought was admirable turnaround, actually. So, with this, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Eggleston to present the resolution as well as the solicitor's opinion.
Okay. So I guess I'll just read through the resolution. Is that-
Sure.
Okay. Warren County has received financial support from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through the Act 13 Marcellus Shale Impact Fee, and the funds are distributed to the county and may be allocated to local municipalities. These funds are to be used to fund acquisition, development, and repairs of greenways, recreational trails, open space, natural areas, community conservation, beautification projects, community heritage parks, water resource management, and oil and natural gas projects. And the Board of Commissioners has received and considered requests for the use of these impact fee funds and determined the project to be an applicable use of the, did I say that right, applicable? Use of Marcellus Legacy Funds. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Warren County that the following projects have met the program requirements and are approved for funding of the local share, and that would be the Struthers Library Theater for a grant amount of $20,000. After previous discussions about this, the Library Theater put in an official application with information on the project, the rehabilitation of the theater itself, the majority of which, or a good portion of it, the majority of which is being done to the exterior of the building. This is a historic building that's on the historic register and has a great deal of history and architectural significance within the community. So I feel that it justifies or is applicable in this case, and especially being operated by a nonprofit as well, to be utilized for Act 13 funds. Our solicitor, John Shreve, has issued a memo basically stating the position that this falls under the law as it's written, and it's available for anybody that's interested in reading it. For those, there have been a couple of questions about the notion of Act 13 and what it what it's utilized for. And a lot of that has to do with a focus on issues related to oil and gas. And I just want to convey to everyone that there are many different buckets related to Act 13 funds. The bucket that we are pulling from is one that is the most lenient, but just to convey that there are other buckets and that they provide for things other than, for instance, conservation or oil and gas related items. Under the 13 eligible uses, you can utilize the funds for tax reductions, delivery of social services, judicial services, capital reserve funds, and a number of other things. So I just want to kind of dispel as much as I can that the bucket that we're pulling from is specifically for conservation or for environmental purposes. It can be used for that. The law allows for it to be used for that, but it's not the only purpose. And so this application is going under what we would consider a beautification project, a community conservation project. So that's why I'm proposing it, and that's why I think we should adopt it.
Very good, thank you. At this time, I would entertain questions from the board for the presenter.
Who's presenting?
Commissioner Eggleston just presented the resolution.
Okay. My interpretation of what our solicitor has provided for us is a bit different than what I read. And let me read you the interpretation. The Pennsylvania Utility Commission encourages counties to consider referencing the applicable statutory language in any resolution appropriating these funds. Act 13 provides no further guidance regarding the use of these funds. The Pennsylvania Utility Commission has no authority to advise local governments on the use of these funds or to give legal advice. Funds should not be used for public relations, communications, lobbying, or litigation, as they are intended for actual projects, not ancillary concerns or consequences. Terms such as open spaces and beautification, which is the bucket of money out of Act 13 that you're requesting the funds from, means different things in different communities. As such, Act 13 was intended to be drafted in a broad manner, which it is, allowing local governments to select projects that suit their communities. Act 13 does not provide a definition for open space, community conservation, or beautification. Upon surveying most Pennsylvania counties, it became clear that most adopted strategic plans outlining priorities to be used in awarding funding for local projects. The priorities heavily emphasized environmental concerns, such as park renovation and conservation and waterway cleanup and preservation. Strategic plans were frequently accompanied by point-based application systems that favored the completion of feasibility studies, contractor estimates, and matching funds. The discretion to allocate these funds is vested in the county commissioners. While the Library Theater Revitalization Project clearly meets a general definition of beautification and is a significant historical site in this community, and I do agree, it is also clearly not an environmental or outdoor recreational concern. Again, Act 13 does not define beautification, and it does not expressly mandate that such projects have some nexus to environmental or outdoor recreational concerns, but such concerns are a widely adopted standard across the Commonwealth for the project funding. The clear reason for this is the heavy emphasis on the environmental impact of gas drilling and other funding mechanisms of the Act, and in the natural gas and energy development debate in Pennsylvania. The board must ultimately defend any challenge to the use of those funds and be prepared to defend it under the language in the Act. The relevant statutory language is quoted above. While this project clearly falls under the definition of beautification, and in our language, any defense to challenge would have to assert that it also falls under the term in the context of the Act. Any analysis would almost certainly consider the broad authority given to the board and the circumstances in this community when applying that definition. The board should determine a cohesive strategic vision for the allocation of these funds in the future. Doing so will allow the board to determine whether the risk of a challenge on the grounds described above outweighs the use of the broad discretion outweighing allocating these funds outside of projects addressing outdoor recreational and environmental concerns. Ultimately, the success of any defense would require success in asserting that the above relevant definitions are not confined to environmental or outdoor recreational projects, and that the General Assembly chose to afford local governments broad discretion in determining whether a project fits under these terms. So with that said, it appears that it's a real gray area, and I'm not certain which arm of the state government did an audit. I don't know if it was the Attorney General or the Auditor General, but beside that fact, they conducted an audit of the use of Act 13 funds and found that there were several counties misusing those funds. And there's a record of that online. It's easy to find. With that said, I'm a little hesitant to move forward on this and then find ourselves having to defend ourselves in an action.
Excellent timing, solicitor.
Just
come on up.
As a quick response,
Did you push the button and he just walks in?
No,
That's pretty cool.
I didn't.
the report that Commissioner Morrison is referring to was done by the Auditor General, Eugene D. Pasquale. That audit was on the 13 eligible uses funds. It was not on the Marcellus Shale legacy funds, which are the funds that we are utilizing. And even in that audit, the findings that he had related to counties purportedly mishandling the funds had more to do with the setup of the law than it did with the counties. The counties utilized the funds according to the law, the 13 eligible uses. The Auditor General did not like the way that the law was set up, and so that's what the finding in the report is. It is available online. I recommend that everybody read it. I would just stress that it is related to the 13 eligible uses funds, not the Marcellus Shale legacy funds, which are the funds that we are utilizing.
All right. At this point, I'd like to call it back to the orders of the day. The presentation has been given. If there's no more questions from the board for the presenter, then I would ask for a motion to approve Resolution 3096. Then we will move into debate and solicit public comment.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 3096, affording the Library Theater $20,000 in Act 13 funds from our legacy account.
I'll second that.
Motion and second is properly made. Discussion, debate, starting with Commissioner Eggleston, then moving to Commissioner Morrison, and then we'll solicit public comment.
I've made my case.
Okay, Commissioner Morrison?
I've said everything I care to say.
Very good. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to Congressman Thompson for coming to our meeting. I'm not sure if we've ever had a congressman come to our public meeting, so thank you. This time I'd solicit public comment. Marcy, did you want to begin?
I just want to say that as the 18th oldest theater in the country, which a lot of people don't know and are aware of, we have worked very, very hard to keep its original intent and beauty, and in this particular instance, hired a theater architect to make sure that we did everything properly. They found that the theater is in beautiful condition and was relatively easy to work on. We, in the process of erecting the beautiful tower, which most people say to me looks like it's always been there, except that it does have that new tweak. And the Historic Commission of Pennsylvania was delighted with the appropriateness of our addition. They thought it was handsome and appropriate to the use. And also, the city has given us twice the width of the sidewalk there and created a plaza, which we expect to be a very big destination half the year. We are going to put tables and umbrellas outside when our cafe gets going, and but we expect we might be able to have some as early as later this year. And we do actually hold events outside and around the theater. So it's a destination, and going to be more so when we become also all information 24/7. We are going to be having outside cafe area, which the shop is going to be converted to a high-def large screen in one window. That will convey not just what's happening in the theater, but everything that's happening in the county. There's no place when you come into Warren except to the west. The Vacation Bureau is a stop if you're entering Warren County from the west. But if you're coming from the north, the east, or the south, there's no place to determine what's going on in Warren. And we will be that central location for not just the theater, but the bike races and the 5K and the fishing tournaments and whatever is happening county-wide. I see us as a true combination: entertainment, recreation, enrichment, and education destination.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Very good.
Oh, I think Bob was making a move there.
Oh, sorry.
I'll just say, I'm Bob Crowley, and I've been working on the fundraising for the theater, and I'm sure everybody has questions. Where are we? We started in 2015. We currently, 3 years later, have raised $2.6 million. Our total goal was about 2.75, and we're about $150,000 shy. And believe me, we've gone to everybody we know in terms of asking for gifts, almost everything, either from the foundations in the community or the businesses or individuals, and a tremendous amount from individuals. We're still shy, and it's very difficult now because it's important for us to close the campaign. Otherwise, we'll be incurring some interest that we're paying on some of the borrowings that we've currently borrowed $300,000. We've got about $386,000 yet to come on the pledges. Almost $2.2 million have been paid already, so we're very, very pleased with that. And the outstanding pledges we think are going, we're positive they look good because they're with some of the stronger entities and individuals in the community. So I'm not worried about that. Yet we still are short, and we would sincerely appreciate your consideration.
I do have a question for you.
Yes.
So you have a shortfall in
Yes.
funding.
Right.
What would you eliminate in your project to recoup that, or to not have that shortfall,
Well,
let's say? Is there something that...
Morrison is essentially complete.
Okay, all right.
The roof is within a day or two. We keep hearing that. But the roof is just being touched up. The seats are being installed now.
Okay.
And as we say, they should be finished this week. And the general contractor just has a few other issues to go. We still haven't completely paid any of the three major contractors, but the work, I would say, is 99.5%.
Okay. Okay.
So there's nothing we can eliminate there. We did add a cafe to the project afterward, but in terms of the overall goal, in terms of the funding, we've not really gone out to seek funding for the cafe just yet. So,
Okay.
I mean, if we had to pull the plug, it would be on that, but that would not impact where we are right now with $150,000 deficit.
So you will be doing another funding campaign for your cafe?
We will.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
So that's
say-
not included in this?
We already have raised some money for the cafe. We just haven't gotten to the level that we need. I would say on the cafe, I'm estimating because we've raised about $60,000, and we were targeting between $100,000 and $120,000 for the cafe.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're roughly $60,000 short there without really studying it as well as we should.
And within the next week, a very large piece of sculpture is going to be raised and attached to the elevator tower. A sculpture that was designed by a Warren County woman and separately executed by a Warren County. And is going to be the logo and sort of stamp of the theater. It's an 18.5-foot copper peacock that will be going up on the elevator tower, and it will be lit from the bottom. The lights are there.
Sounds lovely.
And those funds are decided in place. the sculpture's been paid for. Getting it up has not.
Very good. Any other public comments? We'll have to keep comments from now to about 3 minutes. Please announce yourself.
I'm Joe Scully from Glade Township. I want you to clarify something for me. As a municipality, if they have a problem, like the application I put in with the roof, and you're saying that you want to set, correct me if I'm wrong, that you want to set where you put an application in, say January, to fix a roof, but at that time, you are not trying to get Act 13 money because you didn't know you had the problem to say March. Does that forbid a municipality from putting an application in for Act 13 money?
I'm not
I
sure.
got the impression that you want all applications in prior January to March, I think you said, where you want to review them, but a lot of municipalities don't know they have a problem, and when they do, they attempt to get Act 13 money, and I'm getting the impression their application would not be considered because they didn't get it in at the proper time.
If I could go ahead and answer that. The timetable that we had discussed in the last work session was opening up the grant period applications for the first quarter of the year. However, I would certainly be willing to consider having that the second quarter of the year rather than the first quarter, if that would fit better with a municipality's annual schedule.
But I know you stated in the newspaper that you didn't want it all going to municipalities, but municipalities
no.
don't know they have a problem, and you're saying that they should know that by January. You're wrong there. They don't know. We didn't know that our roof needed, after several times of being repaired, that it needs to be replaced. And that's why I put the application in when I did.
Yes.
And it was in January.
So, to clarify what I was saying, it's not that I don't want it to go to municipalities. If it all goes to municipalities, that's fine with me. I didn't want it all to go to one municipality.
Well, you can't say that because one puts in several applications that the other ones don't need it, or they're not trying to get money. For the job of the supervisors is to get grant money, or 50-50, to keep their particular municipality running properly. And you can't just say that, because it's not one particular municipality's fault that the rest of them aren't trying to use Act 13 money or any other state money that's available. It's their job to find that money. And misfortunately, I'm the one that has to do that, and I make an effort to find money for the municipality that I represent.
Right.
You make a good point.
And to be clear, we did not say in our initial... First of all, we're talking about a policy that has not been implemented yet. It's been drafted, and we're going to be discussing it at our next work session, so presumably we'll be able to pass it at the next public meeting. It's not current policy. That said, I'm certainly willing to consider moving the application time to the second quarter, the third quarter, whatever quarter makes more sense, if the board agrees. That's not an issue to me. Really, it comes down to a preference towards a municipality that has never applied before. Should there be a situation where two municipalities apply, one has been a grantee before, and the other has not, then my preference would be to give the money to the municipality that has never received Act 13 money before.
You can't penalize the municipality because they're, as you want to say, or somebody wants to say, told me, you're greedy. I'm not greedy. I'm out to get money for the municipality that I represent. How I get it and how often I try, that was my job. And I think you should take off this, where these applications have to be in the first quarter or the second quarter. You have to leave that open, because municipalities don't know where their problems occur, and they may not occur in January. So leave that open to, if it occurs in May, let them put an application in if it's revolving around trying to get money to keep their township running properly.
Right. No one, to be clear, no one is disparaging you or what you're trying to do in terms of applying for Act 13 money. I applaud you for it, and thank you, particularly since you're not a township supervisor currently, that you're still putting in the effort of a township supervisor.
I'm Glade Township, authorized by the Board
Right.
of Supervisors, their grant rate.
Yeah, right, and I applaud you for that, and I thank you. To be clear, though, what we're talking about in terms of putting it into a quarterly schedule is just an application opening. If we want to do that twice a year rather than once, that's something we could bring to the board. That's fine, but we're not talking about emergencies. The point of this fund is for beautification, and everything we've already talked about already today. It's not to fix roof repairs or something like that. So if your roof breaks in the middle of the winter, sorry, that's not what the money is for. But if you instead have a plan in Glade Township to create a new park, or create a river landing, or you have a historic building that you want to rehab or something like that, we believe that that is what this money is for.
My understanding of Act 13, yes, I know it's for conservation, which you're talking about, but it's also for use for other projects. Most townships don't, in this county, do not have a park. They have problems that they need to repair, and that's why they apply for grant money.
And there are other grants to cover that.
Just as a matter of moving this along, I would recommend that we have Pam Madby stay in contact with Joe in order to make sure that he's at our next work session where we're actually discussing
Certainly.
the policy related to
And
this.
I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, certainly. We actually have gone well over time on this topic, but please feel free to come to our next work session where we'll be discussing these policies. I'm sure you'll be there, because you're always there.
I do have one more question for Mr. Crowley. Has the city contributed to this?
No.
Have you asked?
Actually, they did contribute the trees.
The trees.
The trees and the grates. Yes, and the dirt, which were expensive.
Okay.
And the light.
They also allowed a variance for your sidewalk, right?
Oh, yes, that was a very large gift, actually.
Yeah.
They determined that wasn't totally safe the way it was going to be left.
Right.
So it was a consideration.
Right.
Yeah, they actually did quite a bit.
So I'd say
Okay.
it's safe to say that in kind,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
but dollar gifts. And we did dollar gifts because we thought
They've done enough.
partnering with us. Very cooperative with this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Other
you.
public comments? Any more discussion from the board? The motion before us is to approve Resolution 3096, which is an application from the Library Theater for Act 13 funds. For my part, I believe that this is an eligible use. And I turn to the solicitor's letter. Ultimately, the success of any defense would require success in asserting that the above relevant definitions are not confined to environmental outdoor uses projects, and the General Assembly chose to afford local governments broad discretion in determining whether a project fits under these terms. And I suppose that a majority decision would indicate that the local government has decided, exercised that discretion, and therefore I'm supporting it. So the motion again is to approve Resolution 3096. All those in favor, please state aye.
I'd like to ask one more question. I'm
yes.
sorry. Attorney Shreve,
Yes.
I know that the Auditor General has done an audit and found some findings.
Actually,
Do you feel that if this were to be audited and found not to be an eligible use, do you feel that our chances would be, how do you feel our chances would be?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I went and I looked at this, there isn't a whole lot of guidance from the public or Pennsylvania Utility Commission. I viewed the report you're talking about. I actually have that up on my phone now. I know that that report specifically did address the 13 uses funding. It didn't get into where we're drawing the money for this project. There's not a lot of guidance, and there's not any statutory definition of what constitutes beautification. I went through and surveyed what pretty much every other county in the state does. There is a heavy leaning towards environmental and outdoor recreational projects. I mean, that just can't be denied. But there have been other uses as well.
Are you referring to the eligible uses, the 13 eligible uses, when you say that, or are you talking about this legacy?
When I'm talking about the report, the Auditor General, that combines to the 13 uses.
Right, which renders it virtually irrelevant, correct?
What?
It renders it virtually irrelevant to this discussion.
That report was completely geared towards the 13 uses, but there's an overarching principle there that there's not a lot of judicial decisions, interpretation, regulatory authority, regulatory guidance. Act 13 was certainly written very, very broadly, and was done so with the intent for commissioners to take actions that are fitting to their communities. Open space and beautification in Warren County mean a very different thing than they do in Philadelphia County. So I know that analysis is essentially what we have to deal with, not much more than that. But under a general definition of beautification, the library theater would certainly fit that project, that term, in my opinion.
Okay, very good. Any more questions for the solicitor?
Pardon me. Are your mics working up there? Can you all either speak up or turn on the mic, one or the other?
Certainly.
I mean, that would be nice to be able to hear what's going on.
Can you hear us better
I
now?
don't think I'm the only one. And if I am, there's something wrong here, and I think there's a lot of people who can't hear what you're saying up there, and I'd like to hear it all.
Very well. We'll try to.
Attorney Shreve did not say anything that was any different than what was in his written statement here, which you're more than welcome to read.
All right, given the fact that we are running out of time, I'm going to call the question by voice vote, aye or nay. All those in favor of Resolution 3096, Commissioner Eggleston?
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison?
Aye.
And I am a yes. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you coming and making the case. You're welcome. Yeah.
Sure. There does need to be.
Sorry.
Most counties have vision.
We're developing that.
Didn't mean to put you through the ringer. I just want to be cautious. I'm sorry? Didn't mean to put you through the ringer. Just trying to be cautious.
Sure. All right, the next item on the agenda is the millage rate. We had announced long ago, when we first released our budget, that we were not going to be needing to raise taxes, and that is still the case, of course, but we should have passed the millage rate. So this is a certification that the millage rate levied and assessed to be used in Warren County in 2018 would be real estate at 20.5, debt service at 1 mil, occupation and per capita no millage rate. Any questions for me on this? Okay, to entertain a motion to approve the millage rate.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
The motion is properly made and seconded. Is there any discussion from the board?
Just happy that there will be no new taxes this year for the county, on the county end.
Public comment. Very good. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Resolution 3099, approval of postponement of tax duplications. This is a routine thing that we have to do every year. If I'm not mistaken, it basically just means that we will be sending out the tax notifications together. Any questions on that, or should we just give any questions?
I'll make a motion to for the dates presented for the postponement of the delivery of tax duplicates.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion is probably made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Notice to award Housing Rehabilitation Administration and Project Delivery Systems. I would like to call on Lori Dunlap from Planning and Zoning in order to present what this is.
I feel like I'm accepting an Oscar and the music is already playing, so let me crash through this. The county is going to be doing a housing rehabilitation program in Youngsville Borough with our community development block grant funds, and we needed an agency to administer this program, someone who is familiar with housing rehab, can go in, assess the homes, see what they need, bid out the work, etc. Last year I put out an RFP, and the only response was from one Port DOC. I've done many rehab projects with them, so I'm quite comfortable with just receiving one bid to do that. We finally received the funds from DCED about 1 year after we applied for them. So now we're ready to award this to Warren Forest DOC to do project administration for a very small housing rehabilitation program in Youngsville. Any questions?
Thank you, Lori.
I have none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the notice of award?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion, debate? Any public comment? Very good. All those in favor of awarding the housing rehabilitation program to the EOC, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. I'll now call again on Lori Dunlap from Planning and Zoning to describe Resolution 3098.
Do you feel like you're in church?
Up and down.
Well,
Now you got two.
CDBG fiscal year 2014, the county allocated some funds to the Redevelopment Authority's Blighted Property Program. At that time, we allocated $10,000 towards acquisition of properties, whether the county's going to buy them, demo them, whatever, and also $20,000 towards demolition for the Blighted Property Program. No funds have been spent to date for acquisition. The funds are getting old, so we need to get them moving, so we're going to move them over into the demolition side of the Blighted Property Program so that we can spend them in a timely manner. We have quite a few houses coming up that we're addressing and doing conservatorship on, so hopefully we can get this money spent this summer. So I ask that you rebudget it, acquisition into demolition.
Very good. Questions for the presenter? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 3098.
I'll move to adopt Resolution 3098.
I'll second that.
The motion is properly made and seconded. Any discussion, debate, public comment? All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm sorry. In too many
Wrong committee.
Sorry.
To be clear, that was 3 yes votes.
Strike that vote.
Yeah, strike my vote. Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Cooperative agreement for Youngsville Borough and the DUI Task Force. We received this letter from Todd Meinwieser, the DUI Program Coordinator. I was going to ask the District Attorney, who was here to present this, but I guess he had to leave. This is a fairly routine thing that we've applied for over the years. It allows the county to have a DUI patrol at least several weekends. I'm not even sure exactly how many, but particularly around holidays to make sure that we get drunk drivers off the roads. I've actually had the opportunity to go on at least one, if not two, of these enforcement programs, and found them to be very shocking. Frankly, the percentage of people that drive under the influence is really quite flooring to me. In the absence of the district attorney, did the sheriff's office have anything they wanted to add about it?
Tim, do you got anything?
Okay, very good. All right, well then, with that, I'd ask for a motion to... Oh, I was going to mention that normally in the past, this has just been signed. I believe the commissioners have not actually passed it in a meeting, correct?
Correct.
So this is... we need to do that. So this is the first time you've actually seen this actually come out in public, but it's simply a letter awarding this. DUI Task Force, the authority, is there any discussion? Do I hear a motion to approve it?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion is properly made and seconded. Discussion, debate, public comment. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Last, Medical Assistance Transportation Grant Program. I apologize, I forgot who was supposed to present on that. Oh, this was the Matt P. Would either the chief clerk or the fiscal director speak to this?
I wasn't prepared to speak to this. I'm not sure what we're looking for here, other than we did submit our fourth and final quarter report yesterday, and looking forward to working with our friends at the at TALK to implement the first quarter of 2017-18.
Very good. The thing before us is a certification of compliance with the Medical Assistance Transportation Program. It's a grant agreement. Are there any questions from the board? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion is made and seconded. Any debate or discussion from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Hearing 3 votes, all the motion carries unanimously. This time, if the commissioners have any brief comments, we could take them at this time.
I have one brief comment. In light of your remarks at the State of the County address, I think it was really very good of you that you incorporated ideas from our former fiscal director. Judy Albaugh, she had items that you wished to put into your legacy, and Ms. Albaugh had already implemented changes to bring accounting records into compliance with reducing the number of findings from the county's audit from 15 to 16. She made all 3 of the commissioners aware of the situation and the numerous county bank accounts that exist outside the county's accounting software. In fact, during her tenure, she had already stated the process of bringing these accounts online. And as a matter of fact, in January of 2016, I met with Judge Skirta and Linda Kreitzer to make them aware that these changes would be forthcoming. So I think that's great that you want to take action on that. I know Judy was really a proponent for that, and of course it's up to the commissioners to actually take action. Also, Ms. Albaugh made us aware of the county's fixed asset records before we even took office, and they had not been fully maintained up to date, nor had the county utilized the current accounting software fixed assets module to track assets and depreciation, a process which she and the county's contracted IT director were working on. And there is actually a spreadsheet that she's put together, and she's already started doing the work that you are looking to do. So I think that it's wonderful that you brought this up, and I think that it's something that we as the Board of Commissioners should definitely take action on in regard to those findings.
Well, I appreciate your vote of support. Thank you very much. The list, I can't take any credit for coming up with the list or having spoken with Ms. Albaugh because I took it directly from the 2016 audit.
Okay,
which were all findings.
And lastly, it's a shame that Ms. Albaugh is no longer employed here because you had talked about wanting key members of our employees here to be part of your think tank, and I think Judy had a lot of great ideas, and I think she would have been a wonderful member of that think tank.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Commissioner Eggleston, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No. We're in a rush because the court's going to start. That's why we were going fast. That's why.
I'll open it up one more time for any public comment. Okay, hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.